You reach a point in your life when even small sounds feel heavy. A drawer closing, a phone vibrating on the counter, someone saying your name from the other room. These things shouldn't weigh anything, but they do. Because you know what often comes after them. Another need, another request, another moment where you brace yourself before answering. You've spent years like this, quietly stretching yourself thinner than anyone ever asked out loud. There's a certain kind of tired that doesn't show on the face. It sits deeper. It moves through the chest like a dimming light, fading not all at once but inch by inch, each yes taking a little warmth with it. You know this tired. It settles in the kitchen at night when the house finally goes still. The dishes are drying, the clock hums, and your hands rest on the table as if they're trying to remember who they belong to. You sit in the half-light, feeling the day pull away from you, and you realize you have given more than you had. Again, people call you strong because you show up, because you pick up the late-night call, because you stay a little longer, listen a little deeper, carry what someone else can't face. But strength is not what you feel when the house grows quiet. What you feel is a kind of soft collapse, an unraveling that happens so slowly you barely notice it until you're already sinking. There's a moment, usually somewhere in the blue hour before dawn, when you wake too early and stare at the ceiling. And in that dim, suspended time, you feel the truth pressing gently against you. You've given yourself away in small, polite pieces. Not out of obligation, not out of pride, but out of fear that you might not be loved unless you were useful. This is the weight no one sees, the private ache of being everyone's steady place while your own foundation quietly thins. And the strange part is how silent it all becomes, how you learn to carry your exhaustion without sound, the way a door learns to close softly so it won't disturb the sleeping house. Even now you can feel it, the truth rising like a faint light behind your ribs. You have been carrying too much for far too long. There's a quiet truth most of us avoid, and it sits just beneath the surface of all that generous effort. We don't overgive simply because we're kind. We overgive because somewhere along the way, we learned that love arrives only when we're useful. And once that belief settles in, it becomes a kind of contract we never consciously sign. I will stay needed, so I do not disappear. You know this pattern. We all do, in one form or another. That gentle rush of relevance when someone asks for help. The faint relief that washes through you when your phone lights up, even if part of you dreads what the call will cost. Because being needed feels for a moment like being chosen. And yet there's another truth that waits behind it, a softer, more uncomfortable one. Sometimes you give so much because you're afraid of what will happen if you stop. Who will you be if you're not the steady one, the fixer, the person who always comes through? What if the world simply moves past you, quicker than you expected? There's a memory you still carry, though you rarely speak of it. A small, ordinary moment, maybe years ago. You were washing dishes or folding laundry when someone you loved said, "I'm fine," with that particular tightness around the words that told you they weren't. And before they even finished the sentence, you were stepping in, rearranging yourself to fill the space their pain created. You weren't asked, but asking was never the point. The point was the old familiar pull. If I solve this, they'll stay close. If I don't, I might lose them. And so a pattern formed. You became fluent in anticipating needs before they were spoken. You apologized before anything went wrong. You smoothed tension, patched feelings, covered for the forgetfulness of others, all while ignoring the slow erosion happening inside you. We tell ourselves this is love, or goodness, or maturity. But beneath all the noble words sits a quiet illusion, that disappearing into others makes us worthy of being seen. And here is the paradox rising in the stillness. The more you erase yourself, the less anyone truly knows you. There comes a moment when the truth arrives quietly, almost politely, as if it doesn't want to startle you. You're moving through an ordinary day, straightening a room, picking up after someone else, answering a question you've answered 100 times, and suddenly you feel it, a thinness in the air around you, as if a room you've lived in your whole life has slowly emptied without your noticing. This is the turning point. Not dramatic, not loud, more like the soft sound of something giving way inside you. You begin to see that your kindness, the very quality you're proud of, can slowly turn against you when it has no edges. A gentle stream becomes a flood when it forgets to follow its own banks. A light meant to guide others grows dim when it never learns to rest in its own darkness. You look back and the scenes appear with painful clarity. The time you stayed awake through the small hours, listening to someone unravel their life while yours quietly frayed at the seams. The evening you stepped into yet another crisis, not because you had the strength, but because you didn't want to feel the guilt of stepping away. The mornings when you woke already tired, as if your sleep had belonged to someone else. You didn't notice the cost at first. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was a slow, steady unthreading of your own center. One quiet concession at a time. Helping became a way to stay relevant. Self-sacrifice became a kind of identity. You started to believe that saying yes was the same as being good. But here, in this clearer light, you can feel the truth pressing against your ribs. Goodness without boundaries becomes a form of self-harm. A soft, respectable, socially applauded kind of harm, yet harm all the same. The shock isn't sharp. It's tender, a mixture of sadness for all the years you gave yourself away, and relief that you can finally see the pattern for what it is. You understand, perhaps for the first time, that a life spent rescuing everyone else slowly leaves no room to rescue yourself. And in this new stillness, one simple truth rises like a quiet breath. A kindness that erases you is not kindness at all. There comes a day when you stop announcing your limits. You simply feel the edge within you, quiet, steady, unmistakable, and you honor it the way you might honor a closed door at dusk. Not with drama, not with fear. Just the recognition that some thresholds are not meant to be crossed tonight. You begin to understand that refusal does not need to be loud. It can be a hand resting on the table a moment longer than usual. A breath that doesn't rush to fill someone else's urgency. A phone that stays face down, its vibration fading into the soft hum of the room. You don't ignore anyone. You just stop abandoning yourself. The world has taught you to explain, to soften your no until it sounds like a maybe, to offer apologies for protecting your own energy. But here, in this new clarity, you feel how unnecessary that is. A boundary isn't an argument. It's a doorway. You choose what crosses. You choose what remains on the other side. There is a strange dignity in this kind of quiet refusal. Not coldness, just the gentle understanding that your inner life deserves the same tenderness you've poured into everyone else. You don't need to justify the peace you seek. Peace justifies itself. You start to notice the shift in small, almost invisible gestures. You let the call go to voicemail because your chest feels heavy tonight. You read a message and wait, not from spite, but from the simple truth that your mind is tired and needs room to breathe. You walk out onto the porch when a conversation pulls too hard, letting the wind move through the curtains while your thoughts settle back into place. No confrontation, no performance, just the quiet, clean act of choosing yourself in real time. It feels strange at first, this refusal without excuses. but soon you sense its deeper meaning, how silence, when chosen with intention, becomes a kind of protection, a soft shield against the endless demands that once shaped your days. You are not withholding love. You are withholding access to what has been overused. And little by little, the guilt that once rose in your throat begins to ease. Not because the world changes, but because you no longer betray yourself to fit inside it. A softer order settles over everything. The house grows still. There is a kind of love that doesn't rush toward anything. It doesn't leap to fix or soften or save. It simply stands at the threshold of your own life, steady as a porch light, offering warmth without stepping out into every passing storm. You begin to sense this quieter form of love the moment you stop running toward every need. When the distance you keep is not a wall, but a doorway left open just enough for real connection to enter, and closed enough to keep your inner rooms from being trampled. Your life becomes a house again, not a shelter for other people's weather, but a place where your own breath can settle. You notice how good it feels to walk from room to room without carrying someone else's sorrow in your hands. How sunlight moves across the floorboards in slow bands, untouched by the noise of other people's urgency. In this softened space, silence no longer feels like withdrawal. It feels like tending the lamp inside you, trimming the wick, keeping the flame steady so it doesn't sputter out from the constant draft of other lives. You begin to understand that stepping back is sometimes the most loving thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the people you care about. Because when you stop absorbing everything, you allow others to stand on their own ground. You let them face their storms without using your walls as shelter. There is tenderness in that, a respect for the shape of their journey, a trust that life will meet them where it must. Some evenings you sit in your quiet house, the light low, the air still, and you feel gratitude rise without a reason, not for anything you gained, but for what you no longer carry, for the gentle order that returns when you let silence guide you instead of fear. Your presence becomes clearer, your heart steadier, your love softer but truer. You realize that boundaries are not the opposite of love. They are the conditions under which love can breathe. And in that realization, a simple truth settles like evening light. Distance, held with warmth, is its own kind of closeness. There comes a moment when the weight you've carried for years no longer feels like a responsibility, but like something your hands simply cannot hold anymore. Not out of failure, not out of bitterness, just truth. A soft, unarguable truth that arrives the way evening arrives, without permission, without apology, without fanfare. You feel it first as a loosening, the old tension in your chest, that instinctive readiness to step forward, to fix, to soothe, begins to ease. You don't force it. You don't chase it away. It just slips off you, the way damp clothes slide from the body after a long storm. For the first time in a long while, you notice how quiet your inner world can be when you're not bracing for the next need. How much space returns when you stop organizing your life around the expectations of others. You sit in that space like someone entering a room they once avoided, slowly, cautiously, then with a strange sense of belonging. It surprises you how natural it feels, to not explain, to not justify, to simply let your choices stand on their own legs. You realize explanation was always a way of asking for permission, and you no longer need permission to live gently. Some memories float up. The nights you stayed awake for voices that would forget your kindness by morning. The days you rearranged yourself so someone else could feel whole. You look at these memories without regret, but without ownership too. They belong to a version of you who didn't yet know the difference between love and self-erasure. Now, clarity replaces guilt. Not a sharp clarity, a soft one, like water settling after being stirred. You see that peace is not something you earn, it's something you stop refusing. And as the noise inside you fades, something steadier rises. A quiet acceptance of the limits that make your life breathable. A recognition that stepping back is not the same as stepping away. A gentle certainty that you don't have to give everything to be good. You let yourself feel the relief, the lightness, the calm that arrives when you stop gripping the world with both hands. This isn't a declaration. It isn't a boundary shouted from the heart. It's simply a return to yourself, to balance, to the quiet truth you ignored for too long. And as you sit with that truth, you understand something simple, something final, something freeing. You were never meant to disappear so others could shine.